Lately, something about being online just feels a little off.
Yeah.
Like your search results aren't quite hitting right anymore. And maybe scrolling through social media feels stranger, less genuinely human than it used to.
It's a feeling a lot of people are starting to notice.
Hmm.
They're talking about it, even if they can't quite put their finger on the why.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to explore why that might be happening.
Mhm.
We're digging into a phenomenon people are now calling AI slop and how it connects to some really unsettling ideas about the internet's future.
Yeah, we've been really getting into a specific piece that pulls together different observations, different bits of research on this. It tries to paint a picture of what's going on beneath the surface.
So our mission today is to unpack the key insights from this source material for you.
Right.
We want to understand what's truly driving these changes you might be sensing online and, what they could ultimately mean for how we all navigate the digital world. Let's jump in.
Okay, so if we want to understand how we got here, I mean, trying to spot automated activity online isn't exactly new.
Right.
We just look back to people like Phil Menser. He caught his first real hint of what he calls social bots way, way back in the early 2010s.
Wow, early 2010s. That feels like ages ago in internet time. What was he seeing back then? What tipped him off?
Right. Well, he was actually mapping how information spread on Twitter, and he just started noticing these patterns that look completely unnatural.
Like what?
Things like single accounts sharing or resharing posts thousands, literally thousands of times within a really short period.
Okay, yeah, not normal behavior.
Exactly. His immediate thought was, these are not human patterns of behavior. Simple as that.
And that observation really launched him into this whole career, didn't it? This kind of bot watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a distinguished professor now, studies the spread of misinformation, how bots
Yeah.
manipulate online discourse, all that stuff.
Mhm.
He was even part of the team that developed the Vote or Not tool back in 2014. You might remember that.
Vaguely, yeah. An early way for people to check accounts.
Exactly. So he's definitely one of the pioneers in trying to track this kind of automated activity.
Okay, so he's been spotting bots for over a decade. What's particularly interesting, though, from the source material is his perspective on something that seemed kind of fringe for a while,
Right.
but is now getting a serious second look.
You mean the dead internet theory?
That's the one.
Yeah. It really started gaining traction around, 2021? Apparently originating from a user called Illumina Tyrant.
Right.
And the core idea was basically that the internet, particularly social media, was transforming into this vast, inhuman wasteland.
Filled with algorithmically optimized, just copycat posts, right?
Yeah.
Now, the initial framing, it made it pretty easy for experts like Menser to dismiss.
Well, yeah, because it included this whole element of a covert government conspiracy pulling the strings.
Exactly. So he apparently wrote it off as bunk.
He did, but then the landscape fundamentally changed. Suddenly, we have these easily accessible generative AI tools. ChatGPT for text, Midjourney for images,
Yeah.
just exploding onto the scene.
And with that, this seemingly wild dead internet theory started looking, well, as the source puts it, downright prophetic.
Even to someone like Menser. He still doesn't buy the conspiracy part, obviously,
No.
but he's quoted saying he's now taking the underlying message very seriously.
Wow.
Yes, and he's explicitly stated, am I worried?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very worried.
And you can see why, right?
Yeah.
Because it aligns with that feeling so many of us have now.
Totally. Social media does feel weirder.
Yeah.
Searching for information does feel worse, or at least less reliable than it used to. You see these AI-generated news sites popping up, reports of Meta talking about AI creating a significant portion of posts on their platform soon.
And it's creating this really strange feedback loop, isn't it?
Explain that.
Well, AI is trained on internet data, right? Then AI creates new content based on that data. Then the platform algorithms push that AI content out, potentially to be scraped and used for more AI training.
Ah, right. So humans risk becoming sort of secondary in that whole equation.
Exactly. So let's put a name to some of this low-quality AI-generated stuff that's proliferating everywhere. The term you keep hearing now is slop.
Yes, slop. It just refers to that low-quality AI content. And researchers like Renee DiResta and Josh Goldstein have been doing really interesting work studying this,
Okay.
especially how it's showing up in spam and scams.
Yeah.
And what they're finding is, well, it's pretty wild.
Give us some examples. Like, what does this slop actually look like out there?
Okay, so picture this. They found over 100 different Facebook pages Collectively, these pages had millions of followers.
Legends, wow.
And they were absolutely crammed with AI images, things that look superficially appealing maybe, but are often just hooks.
Hooks for what?
Well, like fake photos of miniature cows.
Really?
Miniature cows.
Miniature cows.
Yeah, designed to lure people to scam sites.
Mm-hmm.
Or these sort of idyllic, perfect-looking tiny homes or log cabins used just to drive traffic to websites that are just plastered with ads.
It sounds like the old concept of content farms, but just supercharged by AI now.
Exactly.
Instead of, low-paid human writers churning out repetitive articles, it's AI churning out images and text at scale.
Precisely. Generative AI makes stocking those farms incredibly efficient, super cheap.
Right.
And it's not just about creating the content itself. The source mentions ad industry research showing that AI is actually making bots better at simulating authentic human behavior.
Like clicks on ads.
Exactly, like clicks, which makes the ads appear more effective to the advertisers than they really are.
Deceptive. And you can see the telltale signs if you look closely, can't you? Like the researchers identifying these networks partly because of the identical, just copy-pasted captions.
Oh yeah, the source gives this perfect, almost slightly heartbreaking example.
What was it?
The phrase, "This is my first cake, I will be glad for your marks," found on at least 18 different AI images, all featuring different people, different AI-generated cakes.
18 times. That exact phrase.
Yep. That level of repetition is kind of a dead giveaway, right?
Yes.
But then you have examples that show this stuff can actually find an audience, even if it's completely bizarre.
Like what?
Like it. The source mentions the oddly popular niche of Christ as crustacean AI imagery.
Wait, Christ is a crustacean.
Yeah. An AI image of Jesus depicted as a crab. A literal crab. Apparently got hundreds of thousands of likes and reactions.
Hundreds of thousands on a crab Jesus picture. That is peak internet weirdness, isn't it?
It really is. But it shows this content can grab human attention, right?
Yeah.
Even when it's completely surreal and clearly AI generated, it somehow cuts through the noise, at least for a moment.
So while a huge amount of this slop is clearly driven by commercial gain, getting ad clicks, running scams, the source points out that the motivation isn't only about making money. There are other drivers too.
Right. And what's really fascinating here, and maybe quite unsettling, is the example of the Russian disinformation network, Pravda.
Okay, what about them?
Since the invasion of Ukraine, they've reportedly published millions of articles across hundreds of newly created websites.
Millions. Why?
Well, the theory is that they might be doing this specifically to try and manipulate the AI models themselves.
No.
Essentially churning out propaganda specifically for the AI crawlers to ingest, index, and then potentially parrot later in their own responses.
Wow. Like seeding the AI's knowledge base with their narrative.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And NewsGuard actually reported finding references to these Pravda-linked sites turning up in answers generated by some leading chatbots.
So there's a direct line there, from potential manipulation to the tools people are actually using for information.
It seems so. And this AI-generated content, this slop, it's also spreading so effectively because of changes happening on the platforms themselves, where we spend our time.
Yeah, the timing seems critical there, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, generative AI tools got really good right around the same time that many social platform algorithms started shifting.
Shifting how?
Away from primarily showing you content from friends and family you followed.
Right, the old model.
And towards promoting content from totally random users you don't follow, based on whatever the algorithm thinks you'll engage with.
Exactly. And that shift means that a random account churning out AI slop can suddenly get huge reach.
Something that was much harder before.
Much harder when algorithms prioritized your established network. Renee Geresta is quoted in the source, putting it very clearly. She said, the content wasn't just being created, it was being recommended. And she adds, the machines are helping it find us.
The machines are helping it find us. That's kind of a chilling way to put it, isn't it?
It is. And Jeff Allen's analogy from the source is also really powerful here. He compares AI-generated content to an invasive species.
Okay.
Or like an algae bloom in water.
Right. I see where he's going.
While some of the bizarre stuff can be momentarily captivating, like our crab Jesus friend, he argues that this sheer flood of AI content can ultimately suffocate the life you would want to have in a healthy ecosystem online.
Chokes out the good stuff, basically.
That's the idea. And when you look at the wider impacts, it gets even more concerning. OpenAI themselves have reported on some pretty malicious uses of their models that they've identified.
And what have they found?
Well, like a fake Ghanaian youth organization reportedly using AI-generated articles and comments to try and influence an election there.
Wow, okay, so using AI slop for actual political interference.
Seems like it.
Oh.
And then there's the report about potential North Korean cybercriminals landing real jobs at Western companies,
How?
using AI for almost every single step of the process.
Like,
AI-generated resumes, AI cover letters, creating entirely fake online personas to act as references.
fake references.
Yeah. And even allegedly using AI voice synthesis or chatbots to actually talk their way through job interviews
No way.
and provide excuses for why they couldn't turn on their video cameras.
Using AI to talk through interviews and create fake references, that is a really disturbing level of sophistication.
It really is.
It underscores how this isn't just about, annoying content online. It's about serious security and trust issues.
Absolutely. And another massive, almost invisible impact happening right now is just the sheer scale of web scraping.
You mean for training the AI models?
Exactly. That's required to train these large AI models. Tollbit, a company that tracks this stuff, saw the volume of scrapes per site literally double just from the third to the fourth quarter of last year.
Doubling, quarter over quarter. That scale is just, it's staggering when you think about the entire web being scraped like that.
It is. And the source gives that really tangible example involving Wikimedia, right? Around the time of former President Jimmy Carter's death.
Oh yeah, what happened there?
During that period of really high public interest, Wikimedia services were actually slowed down temporarily by a massive surge of traffic.
Was it people looking for information?
No, that's the thing. It wasn't humans. It was scraper bots hitting their pages relentlessly.
Yeah.
Particularly trying to access a video from a 1980 debate, apparently.
Huh.
They cited unprecedented traffic levels specifically from bots compared to humans, right during a moment of intense public interest.
So bots are literally putting a strain on core internet infrastructure
Yeah.
during moments when humans most need reliable information access. That's wild.
It is.
And this understandably has publishers really worried.
Oh, definitely. Some are trying to cut deals with the big AI companies, license their content directly.
Right.
While others are putting up more aggressive paywalls or technical barriers,
Yeah.
basically trying to keep the crawlers out.
And this trend really poses a threat, doesn't it, to the whole idea of a free and open web where information is just readily accessible?
It seems like it could. Shane Longtree is quoted warning that the average consumer might find it harder and harder to access certain information without paying or maybe subscribing to specific AI bots.
And what about smaller publishers?
Well, that's the worry. Smaller web publishers who don't have the leverage to make those big deals could just be left out entirely, which would further centralize information access around the big players.
Yeah. And this also creates a potential, almost existential threat for major players like Google, too.
How so for Google?
Well, their core business model for decades has relied on pointing users away from Google, right, to other websites where the actual information lives. That's how they served ads. But now, with features like AI overviews appearing right at the top of search results, the summary boxes.
The ones sometimes giving weird advice.
Exactly. Sometimes presenting, let's say, dubious advice that inherently reduces the clicks going out to the original publisher sites.
Right. Good people get the summary and don't click through.
Precisely. And some online publishers are already reporting really significant drops in traffic. They're directly blaming AI for it.
Although Google disputes that, right? They cite other potential factors.
They do. But what the source really highlights here is this underlying tension that in the frantic race for AI dominance, the tech giant agendas are often at odds with their users' interests. Meaning they're making these fundamental shifts, like letting AI content mingle right alongside posts from your actual friends and family on Meta platforms. Because it serves their AI goals, their training needs, regardless of whether users actually want that kind of feed or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which brings us to some of the more extreme visions of where this could all be heading.
The scary part.
Yeah. Jeff Allen describes a potential dystopian endpoint.
Okay, what's that look like?
In this scenario, real people simply can't make money online anymore. Their genuine posts just can't cut through the sheer AI din, the overwhelming volume on social media.
So the noise drowns out the signal.
Completely. He argues that in this future, essentially the dead internet wins.
Wow. And he adds another layer to that too, doesn't he? Citing research suggesting that if AI models are trained primarily on other AI-generated content,
Oh, right, the model collapse idea.
Exactly. They can suffer model collapse, basically degrading their ability to generate coherent or useful information over time.
So without that constant stream of fresh, human-made content feeding the loop.
He suggests the internet kind of dies. It eats itself, in a way.
Okay, that's pretty bleak.
It is. Now, Phil Menser, the bot hunter we started with, he isn't quite ready to sign on to that full doomsday scenario.
What's his counter-argument?
His view is more based on maybe market forces. He thinks that if tech companies do allow their platforms to degrade into being purely low-quality bot farms, then what?
Humans will simply leave. They'll abandon the platforms. He believes companies won't actually let the signal-to-noise ratio get so low that it's basically crap.
Because their users, their actual audience, will just vote with their feet.
Exactly. That's his hope, anyway.
And maybe that's the market force that saves us from total slupification, as you might call it.
Maybe.
But the source leaves us with this perfect, slightly frustrating example of the blurry reality we're living in right now.
Ah, yes, the perfect bedpost.
Tell us about that one.
It was this widely viewed Facebook post last year. It showed a bedroom with this really weirdly large fan built directly into the headboard of the bed.
A fan in the headboard. Okay.
Yeah, and the caption was something like, "Finally found the perfect bed. Bet I wouldn't sweat at night with this thing."
And it got a ton of engagement, right?
Huge engagement, like 179,000 reactions or something. So it clearly grabbed people's attention. But if you looked closely,
What did you see?
the fan grill looked slightly warped, kind of distorted, and the exact same image, same caption, was posted by other users elsewhere.
Ah, the classic sign.
It had all the classic characteristics of AI slop, but there was no definitive 100% proof that it was AI generated.
And that's the core challenge right there, isn't it?
Exactly.
The increasing difficulty in just telling what's human-made and what's AI generated, that ambiguity itself is a huge part of the problem the source identifies.
Precisely. It's getting harder and harder to know what's real online.
So to bring this deep dive toward a close then, we've really journeyed from those early days of bot detection with Phil Menser through the unsettling idea of the dead internet theory suddenly feeling, well, kind of relevant in this age of generative AI.
Yeah, and we explored the explosion of AI slop, that low-quality, often bizarre AI content.
We saw how it's spreading so effectively, partly thanks to shifts in platform algorithms.
Right, and how its motivations aren't just commercial, but can actually include things like manipulation or political influence.
We looked at the wider, sometimes really malicious uses being reported, like election interference or sophisticated scams.
And the strain on core internet infrastructure through just massive scraping.
Yeah.
And the potential consequences for how you find information online, the challenges faced by publishers.
And even the existential questions facing the biggest tech companies themselves.
We weighed that dark vision of a potential dead internet against the argument that maybe user behavior, people leaving platforms, might prevent the worst outcomes.
All of this really matters because it's about the online spaces you navigate every single day.
Yeah.
How you search for information, how you consume content, how you even interact with others or, think you're interacting with others.
So maybe as you scroll and search from now on, just take a moment to consider those invisible forces. The AI recommendation engines, the AI generation tools that are actively shaping what you see online.
And maybe reflect on what that fundamental shift might mean for the very authenticity of your online experience.